Have you ever stood in your backyard on a clear night and looked up at a tiny, bright dot moving steadily across the stars? It is not a plane, and it is not a star. It is a home for human beings orbiting hundreds of miles above your head. For most of our history, that view was a dream reserved only for the most powerful nations and the bravest explorers. But today, the sky is no longer a distant ceiling. It has become a new floor for human activity. We are living in a moment where the stars are finally within reach, not just for a few heroes, but for the rest of us. We are moving from a time when space was a battlefield of politics to a time when it is a laboratory for our future. The excitement we feel today is not just about rockets and fire. It is about a fundamental shift in how we see ourselves as a species. This is a story about how we are opening the door to a house we have been staring at for generations. To understand this moment, we have to look at the surface concept of access. In the past, going to space was a feat of pure strength and massive wealth. Only the two largest superpowers on Earth could afford to throw away entire rockets just to send a handful of people into orbit. It was like building a brand new ocean liner, sailing it across the Atlantic once, and then sinking it to the bottom of the sea. This made space travel incredibly rare and dangerous. But now, we are in the middle of a reusable revolution. We are finally learning how to bring those rockets back home. We can watch them land gracefully on floating pads in the ocean, waiting to be filled with fuel and launched again. This simple change in design is dropping the cost of spaceflight faster than anyone predicted. Today, a ticket to orbit costs about the same as a luxury car. While that is still a lot of money, it is a far cry from the billions it used to cost. This is the surface level of the change we are seeing. It is about cheaper tickets and more frequent launches. But if we look deeper, there is a hidden assumption that we have lived with for 60 years. We have assumed that space is a separate place, disconnected from the problems of Earth. We treat it like a luxury or a distraction from the real issues we face at home, such as climate change or global tension. We often think of space as a playground for billionaires or a waste of resources that could be spent fixing our own backyard. But this assumption ignores how much our life on Earth already depends on the sky. When you look at your weather app or use a map to find a restaurant, you are using space. When we talk about saving the planet, we often forget that the best way to understand the health of the Earth is to look at it from above. There are companies right now using small satellites to sniff out methane leaks in pipelines from hundreds of miles away. These tiny sensors are doing more to fight global warming than almost any other technology because they can see what is invisible to us on the ground. We are realizing that to be a climate activist, you must also be a space supporter. The two worlds are not separate, they are one and the same. This leads us to a structural pattern of human progress. Throughout history, every time we invent a new way to move, we change our entire society. Think about the first person who built a raft to cross a sea or the first person who tamed a horse. These inventions did not just change travel, they changed where we could live and who we could trade with. The steam engine and the airplane did the same thing. Spaceflight is simply the next step in this long human journey. At first, it is dangerous and expensive. Then it becomes regular and organized. Finally, it becomes a part of our daily economy. We are moving into that final stage now. We are building an Earth-Moon economy where the resources of space can help protect the resources of Earth. This pattern is as old as humanity itself. We are flawed beings, much like our animal cousins, but we have a unique ability to build rules and cultures that protect us from our worst nature. We are exporting those rules into space now, trying to ensure that this new territory remains a place of cooperation rather than conflict. This perspective allows us to reframe the way we think about the future. Instead of seeing space as a race or a competition, we can see it as a common human project. Even when there is war and tension on the ground, nations that do not get along still find reasons to work together on the International Space Station. They share food, they share air, and they share the command of a ship that represents our best behavior. This is a powerful symbol of what happens when we do things right. It shows us that even in a world that feels like it is falling apart, there are beacons of hope that transcend borders. When you look at the space station, you are seeing a piece of the future that has already arrived. It is a reminder that our common humanity is more important than our national flags. We are all passengers on a much larger spaceship called Earth, and we are finally learning how to navigate the neighborhood together. In our daily lives, we can apply this cosmic perspective to find a sense of peace. When you orbit the world, you see the continents fit together like pieces of a puzzle. You see the world take a breath as the seasons change from summer to winter. This sense of deep time can help us move past the frantic and desperate feeling of the daily news. It makes us eternal optimists because it shows us that our species has survived for 500,000 years despite our mistakes. We can learn to celebrate the small victories in our own lives instead of waiting for a distant success. We can lower our bar of victory so that we can feel joy and pride every single day. Success is not just reaching a big dream, it is the series of small, hourly decisions we make to move ourselves toward that dream. We control what we do next, and that is our true power. We should not allow the scale of our problems to stop us from dreaming. Instead, we should use those dreams to guide us through the intractable parts of our lives. If we want a better world for our children, we have to start by making the most of the time we have been handed right now. This journey into the stars is a reflection of our internal journey to find meaning. We write stories and we sing songs about space because we want to share the wonder of the experience. We want to tap into the thoughts of others and feel a connection that spans across time and distance. This is why we write fiction and why we teach the next generation about the stars. We are trying to frame the big ideas of life in a way that helps a 10-year-old make better choices. We are trying to build a guide for life on Earth that is informed by the view from above. Every rocket launch and every scientific discovery is a chance to rethink who we are and what we can become. We are at a unique point in history where we can do magnificent things if we can just hold our civilization together. We must not squander this moment. We must recognize our history and use our presence to build a future that is worthy of the dreams we have had since we first looked at the moon. If you could see your entire life and your community from high above the clouds, what small problem would suddenly seem less important, and what beautiful detail would you notice for the very first time?